So this wasn't what I had planned. My cymbal company, Istanbul Mehmet, had me on for an interview on Instagram, and I got to talk to Carl Thompson, which, nice, sweet guy, artist rep for Istanbul Mehmet, and we had a great conversation. Now, unfortunately, the weather and my internet connection conspired against us, but I think there's enough content here to be usable, maybe, or at least hopefully there's something here that you can get something from. So this is not the plan. I still have a Drumosophy that I'm working on that will hopefully be ready by the end of the week. But until then, I hope you enjoy my interview with Carl and Istanbul Mehmet.
Hi guys, how you doing? It's Carl here from Istanbul Mehmet Artist Relations. Today we're going to be speaking with Jonathan Colin Green. You may know him from his YouTube channel, Drumosophy, and many other online endeavours that he's got going on. So let's see if he's here and we'll try and get him connected. Let's see how... Oh, there he is. Okay. So if you please, and feel free to ask away. Just connecting. Here he is.
Can you hear me?
I can. How you doing, Jonathan?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm good, mate. Good. It's been a while. I think last time I saw you...
It has been.
Was NAMM, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Many moons ago. Who knows if that'll happen again soon.
At least in a couple of years. Probably like the soonest is in a couple of years, probably.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we're still unsure. They still keep in touch with us, but we're not too sure. But I have a sneaky suspicion that it's not going to happen, especially next year. So,
right.
How are you doing anyway? What have you been up to?
Well, I've been learning how to play bass. I've been, in here as much as I can, but I've been working on a lot of recording projects. One of my bands, Vintage Astronaut, actually came out with a record about 3 weeks ago called Now Is the Future, which is like this kind of like fusion electronic-esque type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm working on my own music, and I'm trying to work on some new lesson packs to sell. So
brilliant. Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's for some of the people out there who may not, or who are not aware of you, let's jump at the start. So your kind of main thing is you do a lot of online lessons, and you have your YouTube channel, which is Drumosophy, and a bit of other things. Can you tell us a bit more about that and where your main focus lies?
Oh, sure. So my main focus is just trying to keep myself sane while stretching myself as thin as humanly possible. But my Drumosophy channel is just, I don't know, because we're old enough to, I mean, I actually don't know how old you are, but I'm assuming that we're close enough in age to remember a post or a pre-YouTube existence.
Oh, absolutely. There was no, I wish there was YouTube around when I was learning to play. I think I'd be a much better drummer than I am right now. So,
right. I'm much more a fan of storytelling than I am online drum instruction.
Okay.
And at the beginning, when everybody was like trying to figure everything out, like you had your drummerworld.com and all of these other things, before personality branding really was a thing, like everybody was their own brand.
Yeah.
I noticed that I was bored a lot online watching people try to like break down and explain almost like the same material. Like everybody had their own paradiddle variations. Everybody had their own type of thing. And so Drumosophy to me was kind of a step in the middle between a vlog and like teaching, which I hadn't seen too much. Like I'd seen in other instruments, like, bass and guitar, but not really much from the drum community. And so I wanted a space to vent. That's the soonest. That's the closest answer that I can come to, and also teach something. So I figured if I could teach something that people wanted to learn, they'd also listen to me talk, and so that's sort of where that started.
Fantastic. No,
But
I
I
mean,
mean, I don't think I have a measly following at the moment on YouTube because I'm such an inconsistent poster. But I'm proud of a couple of the episodes that I have up there.
yeah, no, I mean, I check them out, and it's super interesting. It's a different take, as you say, on just here's a paradiddle, here's this, here's that. You know, it's people are really, buying into you. And that's for me one of the things that I think connects really well with one-on-one tuition is you connect with your teacher, you connect with that
Hmm.
personality, and if people can do that over video, which we're hoping that they're going to do that today because we're talking on a live interview. So it's that type of thing. So I think if they can connect on an emotional level, personal level with you, like you would on a one-on-one lesson, I think that's going to help lessons and people learn stuff quicker. I had some awesome teachers in my past and some great players in my past, but weren't great teachers. And
Hmm.
they were great people, but they couldn't convey that. They couldn't. Maybe it was just they couldn't keep my attention span long enough for
Right.
me really to to learn a particular thing. So yeah, I think that's super like important these days, and I think that you do that very well. And you've got your own vibe, and even when we did the lockdown lessons, you created that own vibe within the lockdown lesson, and it was awesome. It was one of my favorite ones that we did, and you know, it
I
was
was hoping, I was hoping that was the case because I checked through some of the ones that did it before me, and
yeah,
mostly everybody was playing it straight.
yeah,
And I was hoping that it would be okay because sometimes, you just don't know. You put together something for somebody and you want to be yourself, but also be instructional. So I thank you guys for actually reposting that because I almost expected you guys to be like, can you like just get to the point?
No, I mean the reason why we post it is just because everybody is individual. It's the same thing. Like the reason why we ask you to do it, or we ask whoever to do it, is because we want their vibe on it. So, and I think that's super important in the drumming world and music world. Anyway, you've got to be your own person. Like you can practice all the Steve Gadd licks and
Absolutely.
get the Caro licks, but that's awesome. But you want to be you. You want to be Jonathan Colin Green. You want to be your voice. So I think what you're doing is great, man. And how did that all come about? How did you? I read somewhere that you started. It was like 9/11 was the thing that kicked you off and made you want to be kind of the
Well,
thing.
it had nothing to do with 9/11, the event, and everything with the timing.
Okay.
A friend of mine, his name was Chad, is Chad. I mean, I haven't talked to him in years and years, but he just got his own drum set around that time. And I come from a musical family, but I didn't really have an overt interest in music. I just wanted to write and draw and act. And I did all of those things until I started playing.
Yeah.
Um, but he got his drums and I played ish. But he asked me if I wanted to come over to his house and jam with him, and just like hanging out with him and watching him play drums just excited me and made me want to play drums because even though I could play like that, the guitar center beat and but he was getting better and I didn't want to be outdone by somebody that just picked the instrument up, right? And so it was more just competition with who was my best friend at the time, which got amplified by being around it in church. And my dad played keyboard, and I wanted to play with him.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. That's great. And what made you go down the YouTube route of kind of doing a channel and because that brings a whole world into itself, which I think a lot of drummers these days and musicians general, whether you're guitarist, bassist, are doing because of this pandemic that's going on. It's like,
Sure.
what can I do? I can record. I can, so what? Because it's difficult, man. It's very difficult to pull that off. So I mean, you do it well. So what kind of drove you into that area? Because you did it before.
Yeah, I did it. And so the only thing that I wish is I had done it sooner. I think I mentioned that like I wrote and draw and acted and all of that stuff. Like I like creativity. I like telling stories. And it just felt like a natural merging of my musical self
Right.
and what I wanted to do creatively, right?
Okay.
And so like there are novels, there are books that I have in my head, like concepts that I work on from time to time and sketch outlines because that's what I did as a teenager. I wanted to be a novelist.
Oh
Like
wow.
I didn't want to be a drummer as a kid. So it felt and I was always good on stage. My mom, which I have a lot to thank both of my parents for, but one of the things that they did is they always had me involved in church in front of people. They always put me on stage. They signed me up for every single play, every single musical performance. I was into like community choirs as a kid, all of that stuff. And so by the time I started playing drums, I was so well acquainted to being in front of people and public speaking that it all felt natural.
Yeah. Brilliant. Oh, are you there? Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, no, that makes total
Yeah,
sense. I
still
mean,
here.
so so, so that's why you thought you wanted to be a storyteller online and just kind of take that on and and be that part of your brand essentially.
Sure, but then I discovered like kind of real issues about like starting late, and because I did start fairly late, and I just decided to be as honest as I could
Yeah,
online as I was doing it. And so, unfortunately, like in this day and age, especially with like confidence and all that stuff, being self-critical and even in a positive way can seem like being self-deprecating, right? Which is why I have the subtitles because I mean both of them are me, right? But I don't think about the subtitles as I'm filming my episode. I only think about them when I'm editing. And
yeah,
I think that's sort of the way that we think about ourselves as being musicians. Like we always have two perspectives on our performance. We have the one that we're in the moment and we're doing it, and hopefully the critic is gone whenever we're in it because we need to be present, but then we can listen back to the performance and be judgy, right? We can compare ourselves to our past selves. We can compare ourselves with like the picture that we have of ourselves in the future or our heroes or all these things kind of happen. And the best of us mentally figure out a way to balance all of that stuff to stay in a healthy, productive mindset. And
yeah.
that's another part of like my vision for my YouTube channel. It's just I don't think that I've ever explained it that far yet.
Well, you just have right now, and that's awesome. No, I mean, I think that's what you've said is it resonates definitely with me, and I'm sure with a lot of people because that mental balance and fight, internal fight with yourself as to who you are, who you want to be, who you want to influence you. Because you might think, oh, I want to be influenced by such and such, but it doesn't always work like that. Like you might pick up an outside influence with something else that you didn't necessarily realize, and that kind of messes with your mental stability there because you think, well, why can't I be inspired by that person? Why can't I be like that person? And it's just your own chemistry that you're made up of, I guess. So I think that's
There's
super.
also, I'm sorry,
No, no,
I
no.
want. Can I add something to that?
Yeah,
Um, there's also like societal like pressures to make us the drummers that like people tell us we should be. We should be able to like drop everything right now and like play any pop gig imaginable or any whatever because it's like you are the pulse, you're the 2 and 4, all of those things. And thinking about music on that spectrum, I kind of it makes you aware of what you may have to do in the real world. But
yeah,
it's interesting now that the real world has disappeared, what people are choosing to do. That's the
yeah,
cool thing about COVID. Like all this pressure is about like, oh, I have to work on this because like my dance gig, and if I let this go, whatever. It's like, no, your gigs are done. Who are you as a person? What do you want to say? Are you making your own music? Like you can't depend on like whoever you were playing for anymore. Like,
yeah.
so who are you?
Yeah, no, totally. And as you said, COVID is definitely. I think it's been a struggle for a lot of people, mentally, and not just in the music community. I think in society as a whole, it's people are, questioning, oh, well, should I be doing this job? And, even though you think that this is a stable job working for a law firm or whatever, you might have been furloughed, you might have lost your gig, and that might make you just think, well, why don't I be a bit more fun loving and free and think, well, I should take on doing my drums because that was the thing that I was so passionate about as a kid, and
Right.
it, nothing is totally secure, and I know this is a big anomaly and it doesn't happen, once in a decade, once in a century, but yeah, I think you're hitting the nail right on the head, definitely. And there's many questions that have come in, somewhat centering around that, but we'll get to those in a bit. But
Okay.
it's awesome. Well, just for some people who have just joined, let's just recap. Jonathan Colin Green is here. We're talking about anything and everything drum-wise, mental health, and his YouTube channel. So if you've got any more questions, please drop them down in the comments here, and we'll get to them. So since COVID has hit, has life changed for you much? Because I know you work from home quite a bit. And if so, how?
Okay. So I spend much more time at home. I've moved a lot of my in-person lessons to virtual lessons, but I find so I've been married for about 4 years, and it's been a great way for me and my wife to reconnect because she also works from home.
Correct.
So that's been great, but it's definitely it's fed the inner introvert in me because we all have to learn how to be in front of people and how to be professional and be cordial. And even though I like performing and even though I like public speaking, it's because there's a barrier between you and the subject, or you and the people that you're talking to. And I've had to, playing hundreds of gigs a year, you have to break that barrier to make a human connection whenever you talk to people. And that was a real struggle for me. I definitely do far better one-on-one. And as soon as I get into a crowd, I get kind of in my shell. But this has been just a great recharging period for that. I mean, not so much for my bank account, but, trade-offs.
Yeah, right. That sounded like a cash register going on just as you were talking about that.
Oh yeah. So right here, this is the Black Sea hi-hats right here. So some of my favorite hi-hats I've ever played.
Awesome, fantastic. Yeah, it is. It's definitely a challenge in that, but I'm glad you're still working. I'm glad you're still keeping busy, and because you hear so many stories, and people are pivoting to what they usually do. So that's great. Now, you obviously haven't had to, like a lot of drummers have kind of, who do all the live work, have gone, well, I actually need to start recording because we're all at home and there's no sessions and all this. So everyone starts to accumulate gear. And one of the things that I'm asking everyone is what do you use? But you didn't have to buy anything just because of the pandemic. You've been doing this for a while now. So could you kind of give us a quick rundown of your setup and interfaces and microphones, preamps, or whatever you use? And
Absolutely, because I've definitely scaled back over the years. So first of all, I said I owed a lot to my parents. This is why. My dad has a studio. I've always been around it as a kid, but when I started playing my bands, my dad would allow me to record and mix my bands on his console, and so that's how I got started with it. And even one of my first interface was a hand-me-down from him because he was upgrading all of his stuff. And so instead of selling it, he was like, here, you can probably use this. So now I'm working with an RME Babyface Pro into an Octopre. So that gives me 14 ins and 12 outs. And late last year, I picked up a pair of Earthworks overheads, which is the best overhead investment I've ever made in my life.
really?
I came from Shure SM81s, which are decent, but I just have never heard the articulation that I have gotten from these overheads before. So I even have one on the snare with an attenuator at the end, just because condensers are loud, but I really like the tone that I get from this condenser on the snare drum. But Yeah, so we soundproofed this room in my house, which means that I can play anytime that I or record anytime that I need to. Uh,
Brilliant.
but yeah, that's about it. I'm a Logic user because I do a lot of programming.
Okay.
And when I'm writing songs, I'll program as much as I can or as much as I hear, and then I have a lot of friends around here that we all play on each other's stuff, all on each other's music, and so I can just send out the track and say, "Hey, this one needs bass, this one needs vocals, this one needs guitar, or whatever."
Yeah. Brilliant. And do when you're composing, do you write the bass lines and ask the bass player to play a particular bass part, or would you kind of let him do his thing? Or
I trust all of my musician friends immensely. If I send something to someone, it's because I want something that I don't have, like up here. So
yeah,
I want to hear whatever they bring to the table. So I most of the time, little to no instructions whenever I send out a track.
brilliant. Oh, I
Are you
think
still
we
there?
might. I'm still here. Are you still there? I think we might have lost Jonathan for a second there.
Yes.
Oh, you're back. Okay, excellent. We'll just do a little bit of a delay. Yeah, no, that's. I think that's a great idea. That that's the collaboration part, and especially while we can't be in the same room together, I think that's a great way to spark some inspiration between yourselves.
Right.
Right. Let's move on to some questions while we're here. We've already
Okay.
kind of had one question, which is why did you start playing? And we guessed that was just a competition, but that was from
Competition, influences, parents, whatever. Yeah.
awesome. And then we've got a question here from Sam Green. It said, your biggest tip for a young drummer to practice?
Okay. So I'm gonna move outside just so that I can hopefully get some better reception. But I'll answer that
Okay.
question as I move. So listen to music and like don't procrastinate on taking lessons because if you don't take lessons with an experienced musician that sort of sounds or at least like knows what you want to know, you could end up spinning your wheels. I did this. Like I took lessons and I stopped prematurely, and there are a lot of technical things that I have to work on to this day because I didn't get them early.
Yeah. Okay.
So
That's
take lessons, see as many live performances as you can.
that's going to be a different a different time for that right now. All right. The next one is from Drumio Gab, your good friends over there.
Mm-hmm.
How are these challenging times affecting your musicianship, both negatively and positively? Love you, John.
Love you too, Seamus. He's great. Um, so, gosh, I'm a better click player, and I'm worse off playing with other people. It used to be easier to lock in with a band, but I've had a couple of live stream performances, which is why I mentioned seeing live music. I didn't necessarily just mean like seeing music in front of your face, but just taking in concerts as much as you can. But
Right.
um, I'm a better click player, and I feel like my sort of absolute time is improving, but my relative time isn't.
Right.
Like the thing that allows you to kind of like create a center, like a time feel with a band, because I haven't been talking to people like that, like with musicians playing with people, I guess. Um, that's sort of hard. I had a live stream last week with people that I don't usually play with, and usually that's not that big a deal, and they're both killer players, and so I'm just assuming it was my fault. But I've also to bring it back to a positive, I play more of the types of things that I want, and I am free to follow my interest without the obligation of working on someone else's material all the time or working on things just out of pressure. I have a jazz gig coming up, so I need to work on X, or like I have an R&B gig, so I need to do this. I
Yeah.
can literally practice whatever I want and address my weaknesses.
Correct. No, I think that's a great thing, and the stuff that you practice is
Yeah.
very is I wouldn't say it's different, but it's very creative in the way you're doing. You know, you do a lot of polyrhythms and what kind of inspired you to do that?
Vinny Colaiuta. I mean, that's
Okay.
Vinny is the guy. I discovered Joe's Garage when I was in my early 20s, and I heard him play, and him on that record, like he has a singular voice that has not been replicated since. I mean, he doesn't even sound the same, but I fell in love with that period of his playing, and so in such how different it was. It almost was like Alien isn't. It's probably cliche, but it just didn't sound like anything else, and that attracted me to that. And I wanted to figure out how he got there. So I heard he studied at Berkeley for a bit under Gary Chafee. Looked up who this Gary Chafee character was. Picked up his books and noticed all of these weird brackets and numbers, and that's what kind of led me to quintuplets and septuplets and nested tuplets and metric modulation and all of this stuff. But it started there.
Correct. All right. Yeah, I mean that's the Chafee book is a particular mind bender, shall we say? But
The
it's
issue for me though is that people don't use it. Like it's so strange how everybody has gone through it and none of it seems to be in anyone's playing, and I wonder why.
yeah, yeah. I mean it is a difficult one to decipher, and I think a lot of people sometimes they think, well, if I want to just do a pop gig, I don't need to know that. I just want to do the 2 and 4 thing. Maybe that's, but there's levels of where people want to go. Like you wanted to be a Vinnie Colaiuta, and that's maybe why
Oh, sure.
you know.
But I don't just mean like I guess what your average working drummer, whatever that means, uh, does. Like I mean even fusion guys or jazz guys, you just don't see an obvious influence. You see those guys more likely to base their playing off of transcriptions and influences versus book learning.
We've got a few people here jumping in on questions. What advice would you give to beginner drummers out there? Well, I think we just answered that question. It was
Mm-hmm.
kind of check out live music, be true to yourself. And then Lefty Brizzle actually has 2 questions here. He's got one. It's also really easy to go through all the stickings and whatnot, then to forget about it. That's true. But Lefty Brizzle also asked the question is, when do you think you found your own voice?
Found? Um, my own voice, like, I don't know. A voice is one of those things that probably will change as you change. And so I don't think it's about finding anything. It's just being true to like what you feel in the moment. And then if you have a global view of what you do, you can notice trends.
Right.
Right? I seem to do this a lot. I seem to like this type of thing. And once you see the patterns in yourself and the patterns in your playing, it's really up to you to reinforce them or to change them.
Yeah. Now, when you film
I
yourself and sorry, go on.
No, I also wanted to address the really easy to go through all the stickings and then forget about them. Because once like going through all the stickings is only the first step. Like if you're not really curious about how these things can be utilized musically, then you haven't really learned anything. Like you've gone through like the technical aspect and maybe that'll help you get through some other things, but it doesn't aid in the creativity or the building of yourself because you're not looking at those stickings through your point of view. That's the difference between like somebody going through something just because and someone else saying, okay, now how can I make this my own?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of students and even myself, and I'm sure everyone's guilty of it at some point, is
Absolutely.
is they go, yeah, I can play that now, and it's like, well, yeah, you can play a paradiddle, but have you tried putting it on the kit? Have you tried putting your left hand here? Putting it on your feet? And I think it's if you can spark that creativity within a particular exercise or a particular pattern, I think that's where you're going to grow. So, but yeah, awesome. Now, going back to what you were just talking about playing in your sound, is when did you first start like recording yourself and videoing yourself? And when you did that, did you get a shock, or did you watch yourself a lot and be like, oh man, I need to really work on this? Or
I've recorded myself from the beginning. That's the beauty of like having a father with like a home recording studio. And I was shocked. I was shocked at how bad my tempo was. I was shocked at how uncreative my fills were, and how like stiff my time feel was. And those were all great things to know, because if I didn't know them, then I couldn't work on them. So a lot of people talk about feedback: record yourself, like fix, record yourself, like adjust. And that, I think, is a huge deal. And it probably also should have been said about the beginner's question: record yourself as soon as you can. Like, the more accurately you can see yourself and know what you need to fix, the faster you can grow.
yeah, yep, I think so. Yeah, because I think when you learn as well, you can play something, and to you it goes, that sounds awesome, but it passes in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
to be able to recall that, that's why I think, when people play live gigs, it's very forgiving, because you just play it and the moment's gone and people have forgotten about it. But if that
Mm-hmm.
gig is recorded or filmed, you're like, oh man, okay, yeah, that's there forever, and that's so that's some great tips there. How's the weather there, by the way? It looks like it's throwing it down. Where are you at right now? You're in.
I'm sorry. I'm.
Oh, you're losing him. How's the
What's up?
weather? It sounds like it's throwing. How's the
Oh
weather?
my
It sounds like
gosh.
it's throwing it
Yeah,
down out there.
it is.
Right.
I was hoping to get better reception out here because I'm downstairs in my basement. But
That's all good.
yeah, yeah, it does not look good right now.
Um, awesome. All right then. So let's dive in here and who inspires you right now as in this modern day? Who is there any new
Man.
upcoming players, or is there any people who you're just always going to be inspired by that you think, whether it's Vinny or whoever?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So people inspire me. Gosh. Uh, let's see.
And
So
it doesn't have to
Andy
be music related.
Prado. What's up?
Doesn't have to be music related.
Oh, sure. But like drummers, if people want to know what drummers I really, really like at the moment, like Andy Prado, Mason Guidry, Joel Turcotte, obviously. I mean, not obviously. If you know me, he's a friend of mine, and he explores some of the same territory. But I also like people that do some like things that are completely different. Like
Yeah.
even Seamus from Drumeo Gab is a great, solid drummer with a nice touching, like a powerful feel. Uh, Brody Simpson and Ian Maciak. Like, I'm a huge drum and bass fan.
Oh, okay,
One of the
fantastic.
first music that I really got into was drum and bass. So those guys, Mark Juliana, Zach Danziger, Jojo Mayer, non-drummers like Jacob Collier, and I mean, just anybody that's pushing. Tigran Hamazian, Nate Wood.
Yep.
I mean, everybody that's kind of hip right now. If you have somebody to like let me know that I don't know about, man, I'm all ears. I'm always looking for
No, I mean you're
new.
hitting all of the names there. So you're in the
And
right.
there are too many people to name. There are entirely too many people to name, and I
Yeah.
haven't even gotten to like education influences.
And
Like
how
I
do you think that
so
is? Like, how do you think that goes with the whole social media thing these days? Because that's something as artist relations these days. It's very difficult because social media is so instant and so people come and go very quickly, and people's attention spans are so much smaller these days because you swipe down on your Instagram and you go, "Oh,
All right,
great."
I did.
So, how do you think that's affected the whole society really of music?
You know, I mean, it's obviously positive and negative. Like something on people, be like, "Wow, I could never do that," or it's just showing the way for other people that have the will and the patience to go through it. And so
Yeah,
it's like the 4 minute mile thing. Like it took one person to break that 4 minute mile, and then all of a sudden you have another slew of people that just like break it and break it and break it. Because I mean, it was the myth that it just couldn't be done. It was outside of the realm of like physics and like what humans could do until someone did it. And so you just have this constant stream of information of people doing incredible things. And so you could be like, okay, that's not for me. Or you can say, you know what? I want to try that. And so personally, I've been influenced in fairly positive ways with Instagram. The issue is that maintaining a positive image for somebody that doesn't have like a rock hard self esteem. I shouldn't probably not have said rock hard there, but it can be damaging.
yeah. No, that's a great way to put a spin on it because I know a lot of people can feel the opposite, and people will just be like, "Oh my god, I've been looking at my phone all day and I don't feel any inspiration," and you feel the opposite. But it's great, and I think that's a great spin to put on it because it is true. And thank you, Gareth. I see Gareth plays drums there. These chats are inspiring to hear a different drummers' approach, and I think that kind of goes in with the social media thing. You're seeing everyone's different approaches constantly. So
Mhm.
that's great, dude. Oh, awesome. Do you think social media has helped you with your name and your voice? How do you think you would do without it right now?
I would probably still be a small town drummer. Unfortunately, it takes a lot for me to kind of move or just sort of get out of my comfort zone. And without the people that I've met that have pushed me outside of my comfort zone, which I don't want to get into like name dropping here, but there have been people that have been extremely gracious to me and that have
Yeah,
introduced me to people that have shared my content, that have hosted me on interviews like this one, that
yeah,
have just been really, really helpful. So I wouldn't be where I am without it. But I mean, who knows? Like I might be somewhere else that's equally fulfilling, but we are where we are. So
yeah,
I can't really think about life too much outside of social media because I mean we have it. It's here to stay. It seems.
yeah, yeah. All right, let's kind of start to wrap this up a bit because I know we're getting to the probably the level of where we're going to get cut off by Instagram here. But let's. There's a couple of things I want to ask you. So,
Sure.
have you got any goals and things that you're reaching for right now that you want to see developmentally for yourself? Whether it's a new record, which I know you're working on, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and or whether it's playing wise or a particular gig you want to get. What are you working on right now or hoping for in the next few years?
So my hope is that um, my group of musician friends here, because I have some killing musician friends that I play with all the time. Hopefully we can get some work done and some you can start seeing some names from my area across social media a lot more. Like it's almost criminal how many musicians aren't recognized, even though they're amazing. And if this is like what's about, you see all this content, see all these influencers. I know so many people that need to be in front of people, and I hope that like my platform can help some of my friends to also get out there.
Brilliant.
So that's one goal. I really want to be supportive of my local community here because these are the people like you guys are seeing more of a finished result. But if it wasn't for the people that I play with, people like Matt Sickles, Daniel Seraph, Court Winner, John Ray, Michael Kinchin, and I know all these names don't ring a bell, but hopefully they will. And like I mean the list goes on, but I hope to help to propel them to where they need to be, even with my own meager platform.
That's brilliant. That is awesome. And I think now, so more than ever, people don't need to be in a major city, to do something, and
Right.
yeah, I live in LA, but I moved from a small town in north of England, and you don't realize until you move out of that to a major city where all the best players are. And yes, there are some incredible players here, but how good you had it back where you were. Like I grew up with
Yeah.
some musicians in the world, and nobody, they're not on the radar just because they didn't move to New York, LA, London, or wherever. And I think that's a fantastic point, and I think that's one thing that's good from social media. Is people are starting to recognize these people because they're putting themselves out there, and you can reach this broader audience now.
Right.
That's super inspiring that you're doing that, and that you're staying true to that and recognizing that, because it is. I think a lot of people do kind of miss that side of things, But awesome. Okay, we're coming to a close here. One exercise that you do fairly regularly that you think keeps you kind of in check with yourself.
Is this a drumming question?
Could be any question. Go for it. Could be a drumming question. Could not be.
Okay. Okay. I take walks when the weather is actually nice. I walk about 3 or 4 miles a day, and my wife hates walking herself, but because if you're trying to exercise, there are way more efficient ways of doing it. But it's not just about the exercise. It's about going somewhere and detaching for things for a bit, and like taking in fresh air for an hour, and like just letting your mind reset and refocus. And that has been extremely helpful and grounding as a human being, so that when I come back home, like I can reorder my tasks, I can like take inventory and prioritize things in a way that's a little bit more healthy and less fueled by anxiety.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think definitely in these times when people are in this kind of Stockholm syndrome where they're just inside and they're just like, oh my god, what do I do? They forget that this is a necessity, and because in everyday life you're just out, you go to work, you go to the grocery store, you've got things to distract you from all that, and I think that is something that a lot of people should do, mate. That's awesome. Mental health is very, very important.
Yeah, you want to talk about a theme? I didn't even know that we would be talking about it that much, but that is something that's very important to me. So,
yeah, no, I see that, and I think even when you watch your videos, you can see that, and you're playing, and you're so open and free, and that comes out in your playing because you're able to release at that point, and you're able to just be free, and just be open to what you want to play. So that's brilliant, Jonathan. Is there anything else you want to say before we close off? But I think that's a great place to end, personally.
I do want to say one thing. Hopefully, I can lose enough weight to wear the shirt that I was sent, because I realized that like there must be like European sizes.
Yeah.
Because like that. So I got an American X. I'm an American large now, but I was an extra large whenever I got that shirt, and I was like, oh no, I can't never walk out of the house or be seen on camera. So if I could lose enough weight to wear the Mehmet shirt that I have, I would be thrilled.
Yeah, they're a little small. We're fixing that though.
No,
So,
I'm fixing that. So that's fine.
Awesome. Well, mate, it's been great to speak to you, and thank you for taking the time out of your day. And thank you for everybody else to listening in and checking out. We've had Jonathan Colin Green here talking about some fantastic things in mental health and all sorts of different playing and staying true to yourself. I'm sure if you have any more questions, you can either DM me, or I'm sure you can reach out to Jonathan himself. Go and follow him on his YouTube and Drumosophy on his Instagram. He's a wonderful being, a wonderful human, as you can tell, and an incredible player. So please reach out to him and ask him all the questions, bombard him so he can't do any walks or anything.
All right.
All right. Well,
thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. I'll speak to you soon, mate. Have a good one.
All righty. You too.
Catch
Bye.
you later. Bye-bye. Again, thank you, everybody, for listening in and checking this out. Again, if you've got any more questions or anything you want to know about Jonathan, either reach out to myself at istanbulmehmet.com on the website, or also on the DMs here, or reach out directly to Jonathan and he'll definitely get back in touch with you. Next week we will have a Canadian artist who is also a lawyer in the entertainment industry. So it's going to be a really interesting chat that we're going to have amidst all this new touring and social distancing and remote recording. So please check that out and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.